Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending this public comment session this morning. The matter we're going to be discussing is the Maverick Rock application, large mine for large mine operation. We are going to, I think we have in person and online approximately maybe less than 10 individuals who are here to provide comments. I also want to share for the record, I have reviewed the written public comments. Oral and written public comments will be given the same weight in this. You're welcome to repeat things if you'd like to. If you have submitted written comment and you want to provide oral, that's fine, but they will be given the same weight. Next to me is Charles Lyons. He may not be on camera, but he is my counsel for this. Let me tell you how this is going to roll out. I'm going to allow the operator to speak to their application, to provide whatever content they'd like to. I then also like to invite the division to speak to their position on the permit, and then we'll go into the public comment session. For public comments, I'm generally going to limit public comments to 5 minutes, but given the small number of people, if your content is relevant, I will allow you to go a little bit further, of course. It's about getting information here, not following the clock. Again, thank you all for attending this morning, and with that, I'm going to invite the operator to come up to the podium, state their name and who they represent, and go from there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Thomas. I'm Denise Dragoo with the law firm of Snell and Wilmer, and I'm appearing today on behalf of Maverick Rock, who's the operator of the Ekins mine and the applicant for the notice of intent to operate a large mine permit. And I'm joined today, excuse me, by Amber Withers, who's the senior project manager with AECOM, and that's the consulting firm that prepared the application. And Maverick Rock understands that the hearing today is primarily informational, and that we're just primarily here to hear further public comment. And we've been asked by the division to be prepared to respond, should there be further questions. But we thank the commenters for their interests, and we're prepared to listen to their concerns. We've have kind of divided this into both the legal and the technical, and we'd like to have Amber Withers, who prepared the notice of intent, to address some of the background, give you a little, just a short background, a synopsis to where we are in terms of the permit processing. And then we've sort of, I guess, synthesized the comments that were submitted in writing to address the major concerns of air quality, dust control, and groundwater impacts. So, and of course, at the close of the hearing, we want to request the director to reconfirm the division's tentative approval and move forward with this. But I'd like maybe Amber Withers to come up and give us some of the technical aspects since she prepared the notice of intent.
Thank you, Mr. Grew. Ms. Withers.
Hopefully this will work. Okay. I'm Amber Withers with AECOM, and I did prepare the NOI for Maverick Rock. And I just wanted to give a little bit of background on the Ekins East mine. The permit was first approved back in 1999, and this pit has operated over years and is transferred through several operators. In September of 2018, the Ekins permit was transferred to Maverick Rock, and since then Maverick Rock has updated the permit documents at the direction of the OGM, and we put the permit into the OGM preferred format. I just wanted to show this map. This is the permit boundary that was originally approved back in 1999. It was drawn using the meets and bounds description on the 1999 reclamation contract. And I want to point out that the operations of the pit will be very similar to what was approved back in 1999 and will be mined in phases as was originally approved. The phases, I'm going to show the other map from the mine. These phases on this figure are estimated, and will be updated as mine plans change, or at a minimum of every 5 years. That kind of corresponds with the bond escalation process. Maverick Rock is committed to only what has been approved in the Phase 1 mining, keeping their acres of disturbance to approximately 175 acres. As mining progresses and material resources are depleted on the east side of the mine, it will begin to be concurrently reclaimed, with the transition into the next phase, with the intent of keeping the area of disturbance the same throughout the life of the mine. The NOI was extensively reviewed by the division and Maverick Rock and is consistent with the division's rules. And the NOI has explanations about the type of operations to be conducted, transportation, access, dust control, air quality, processing operations, stockpiling of existing soils and plants, plans for protecting soils and plants, operations and practices, public health and welfare, slope stability, erosion control, avoidance to hazardous materials, reclamation and stabilization, hole plugging, impacts to water resources and mitigation to wildlife, cultural resources, revegetation, and a calculated surety. The division has found that all of these were properly addressed, and they did issue tentative approval. I just want to point out the air quality, which is per rule R 647-4-109.4 addresses these impacts to air quality, and Maverick Rock has an approved approval order with the Division of Air Quality, and they've also submitted a fugitive dust control plan. They have certain emissions that they have to remain within, and that is all monitored with under DAQ, Division of Air Quality. And the mine is to remain in compliance. For the groundwater and surface water, the Rule 647-4-109.1 addresses the impacts to groundwater, and the project will not adversely impact groundwater resources. Groundwater has not been encountered during any of the current exploration and mining, and there's approximately about 216 vertical feet separation between any quarrying activities and groundwater. So that's my update on the mine, and we're here to answer any further questions that come from the public.
Thank you, I appreciate it. No questions from me at this time. I invite the division to come up and provide any comments you'd like to.
My name is Matt Munson. I'm the permit lead for this project with the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining. The division in the past couple of years have gone through multiple review sessions for this permit and the revision of it. We've shared a few lists of different deficiencies to the operator and have had back and forth with them to address those deficiencies. And as of today, with the tentative approval, the division believes that this permit has met the rules according to R 647, and that all deficiencies have been addressed. That's it.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you both for providing this. I do want to say, although I don't think we'll extend too far toward the noon hour if needed, I will allow for breaks as we go through these comments so that everyone is fresh and ready. And that includes any conversations I may need to have with council real time. So thank you very much. Our IT guy is coming up. We good? Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. I now have, although I have blank screens, Matt. Okay, I'm sure he's on it. There we go, we're back. I'll allow for public commenters in the room to go first. So with that, come on up, introduce yourself.
And so I don't need to touch these.
Is one of the green lights on?
Yeah, both of them are.
Okay, good.
There you
Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Terry Camp. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy for the Utah Farm Bureau Federation. We also submitted some written comments. And I really appreciate the opportunity this morning to discuss the tentative decision regarding Maverick Rock, Ekins East Mine in Utah County. The Utah Farm Bureau Federation recognizes the importance of economic development, but we also believe we need to consider the potential consequences on our agricultural community. The southern end of Utah County is a really unique microclimate for fruit growing. Its combination of climate, soil, and geographical and geological features creates an environment that is particularly well suited for stone fruit cultivation, making it a valuable agricultural asset in Utah. Utah has already lost many of its most valuable orchard areas to development. In fact, a 2014 Envision Utah study found that only 3% of our fruit needs are met in the state of Utah, and with a growing population and a decrease in overall ag lands, this is likely even lower than it was in 2014. So we're not coming anywhere near meeting kind of self-sufficiency for fruit growing in the state. Many mining and aggregate operations already exist in Payson, Genola, and Santaquin. If you drive to this area, there are operations almost on all sides of you. It creates kind of a bowl. Our fruit growers in these areas consistently express concerns about air quality and often share photos with us of dust blowing off of pits, gravel pits. Utah County, like other parts of the Wasatch Front, is currently facing the challenge of meeting federal air quality standards set by the EPA, where we have many non-attainment areas. And our orchards in this area are really highly sensitive to changes in air quality. The dust generated from mining operations, drilling, blasting, excavation, loading, transport can pose significant threats to fruit trees. It can interfere with photosynthesis. It reduces fruit yields. It exacerbates pest problems, particularly mites. It can diminish the effectiveness of pest treatments, and it negatively impacts overall tree health. Furthermore, persistent dust pollution can degrade the quality and marketability of produce, leading to economic losses for our orchard owners. Beyond the direct impact on plants, dust and particulate matter from mining operations can settle on surrounding soil, and the deposition can alter the soil's chemical composition, affecting its fertility and structure. And healthy soil is really critical for maintaining optimal growing conditions for fruit trees, and any degradation in soil quality can have long-term consequences for orchard productivity. And so, in light of these concerns, the Utah Farm Bureau just urges Maverick Rock to implement effective and comprehensive dust control measures. This, at a minimum, should include water spraying or use of dust suppressants to minimize the impact on surrounding orchards. And we just call on the state of Utah to ensure strict adherence to the commitments Maverick Rock makes through the submission of a fugitive dust control plan. We understand the state's monitoring limitations, and so we've educated our fruit growers in this area regarding the process to file air quality complaints. We've also encouraged our members to review fugitive dust control plans and file complaints if commitments are not being met. We even recently looked into a gravel pit in this area and had requested through GRAMA fugitive dust control plans for all the existing pits, and found that one of them hadn't submitted one, and so the state had to take an enforcement action to get them to submit one. So we understand the state has to operate sometimes on a complaint kind of basis, but we just hope that you put the resources you need toward this. The Utah Farm Bureau strongly advocates for responsible and sustainable development practices that consider the well-being of our agricultural community. We believe that with proper measures and oversight, both economic development and agricultural sustainability can be achieved. And so we respectfully request that you take our comments into consideration as you deliberate this matter. The future of our fruit industry in Utah hangs in the balance, and appreciate you taking time to look at these critical issues. Thanks.
Mr. Camp, I apologize. I do have a question.
Sure. Sorry.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate the information you shared regarding the impacts of the dust on the crops. Does the Farm Bureau have any quantitative data
I don't
regarding this?
off the top of my head. We have some fruit growers that are on the call, like Doug Rowley and others, that may have some specific data for you, but no,
Okay.
I don't.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And
Yeah.
I invite that material in future commenters. So
And I guess I should say one last thing. This isn't directed specifically at Maverick Rock. I mean,
understand.
there are a number of operations already existing in this area. We just want the cumulative impact of these pits, you know, in the surrounding area. So, yeah. Again,
Thank you.
Nothing that they've done specifically. So.
certainly, thank you. Are there other commenters in the room who'd like to come up and provide comment? No one standing up. That's fine. In that case, I'm going to move to folks who are online. When I call your name, I encourage you to unmute and, if possible, turn on the video so we can see and hear the commenter and have you on the record there. The first person that comes up that I see with the actual video is Mr. William. If you have any comments you'd like to provide, please do so.
Yeah, my name is William McMullen. I noticed it doesn't have my last name right there. I am one of the owners of McMullen Orchards in Mason, Utah. We have orchards in Genola, West Mountain area. We own and operate a 70-acre orchard, butts up against the Maverick Rock operation. 10% is sweet cherries and the rest in peaches on that 70 acres. Over the last few years, we've actually seen an increase in mite pressure. Sweet cherries are affected by the McDaniel and two-spot mites. When on the leaves, it has a coating of dust on them. Because of that dust, we've had to increase our coverage of these mites. We use a product called Acromite, which costs $66 a pound. We have 11 acres of sweet cherries we have there. It costs us $700 plus labor and equipment just for one cover spray. To control the mites on the peaches, we use a product called Nexter, which is $450 per gallon. 32 acres of we have there on that butts up against Maverick. It costs us $1,200 plus labor and equipment each time we spray, and we've had to spray twice this year. In the years past, 10 years ago, we never had to spray for mites. It just keeps like this, just keeps increasing every year. During our peach harvest this year, I noticed an increased amount of dust on our peaches. Peaches are such a delicate fruit that we cannot brush them or wash them. If we do, they deteriorate a lot quicker. And then also, just wanted to point out that McMullen Orchards uses a well as part of water our orchards. This well is located less than 1,000 feet from their actively working the pit. Our concern that when we drilled this well back in the 80s, that the well operator hit 2 caverns when he put this in, 400 feet deep. When he was drilling through that limestone, we worry about losing this irreplaceable source of water for orchards for this mining operation, either by blasting or contamination. On a little personal note, my house is the closest to this mining operation than anybody else's. 1,500 feet away from where they're. And 10 years ago, we could have windows open and in our house all the time. But during the especially this last year, we even opened up the windows list on a holiday or a Sunday. That's all I have. Appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. McMullen. Next person who pops up, at least on the screen we're looking at, I'm going to call on Robin Stevens, if you don't mind unmuting and potentially turning your camera on, if that's possible.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Hey, thanks for the opportunity. My husband and I live on a property directly adjacent to the extended mining area. And in reading through the notice of intent, I do have a couple of questions. The first one is about how much area they're going to disturb, because first it says they'll limit it to 175 acres in phase 1, but it doesn't say a lot about the future phases. And then it says later on page 13 is the intent. It's their intent not to mine more than 175 acres at one time. But then it says they can if they post additional bonding. And then later on, it says in no event will they mine more than 175 acres. So it seems to me that in different areas of this notice, it's not clear whether they can exceed 175 acres. It says it's not their intent, but then I don't think that's very clear. Can anybody speak to that?
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. If you don't mind, I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you a farmer? Do you have an orchard in the area, or can you?
No, we
give us-
don't, but our
okay.
house is right on the edge of the property. There are
Very good.
several of us that have homes directly adjacent to where this is going to go.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. I am going to ask the applicant to track these questions, okay? And as we go through individual commenters, some of the questions may be similar, right? So that way at the end, you can provide whatever feedback you'd like on that. Does that fit okay? All right. That said, Ms. Stevens, is there anything else you'd like to ask?
Yeah, one other thing. It talks about the phases, phase 1, phase 2. It says that the intent is for phase 2 to follow phase 1, etc. But it also says that the names and sizes of these phases can change pretty much at any time. So my question is this: if phase 2 is supposed to follow phase 1, because we live next to what should be maybe phase 3 or 4, but if they can change the names of the phases, does that mean that technically what's on the map now as phase 4, they could just turn around and change it to phase 2? Which would kind of mean they could go to anywhere they want to mine at any time by changing the names and the sizes of those phases. Those were my two main questions. Also, the other thing is Utah County does have some rules and regulations that are provided for any operations within 1/2 mile of an existing dwelling. We are far closer than that, saying that they need to address hours of operation, noise mitigation, landscaping, more dust containment and lighting. And I didn't see any of that listed in the notice of operations. So is that something that DOGM manages, or is that something that the county is going to manage? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Stevens. I would invite the division to also track these questions, and if there's anything that come up that you feel are particularly that you think you should respond to, we invite that as well. Again, track all of these questions as we go along. Our next public commenter is Paul Eubanks. If you have the ability to turn your mic and your camera on, I'd really appreciate it. Not a commenter, okay. Curtis Rowley. Very good, thank you, Curtis.
How's that?
You're on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, thank you. I am a fruit grower, similar to William McMullen. We have, I'm one of the owners of Cherry Hill Farms. We are to the south and east direction of this pit. We have approximately about 400 acres that fall under where this dust plume falls each day. And so we just have a few things I'd like to share. I use the same sprays and other sprays that William McMullen uses. And this past year, if you want me to break down into the details, I can, but this past year, we spent well over $50,000 on sprays just to cover those same mites that William talked about. And we still didn't weren't able to control them. Anytime you have dust, heat, and mites, it causes disaster. As the Farm Bureau stated, we're very concerned about next year's crop. These dust mites will come in and chew up your fruit for the buds for the following year. And so we do all we can to protect them and try to keep them contained, but we don't know what's going to happen yet, not for a few more months until we see what's on the tree. I'm just going to read some of the things I wrote here. As for our farm, we're not in the business of wanting to tell others what they can and can't do on their own property. We don't like it when people come and tell us that. But we all do have rules and regulations we have to live by. And we live by those rules and regulations, but it's really difficult for us to want to go put out more and more money because of someone else's problem. So we asked the county, we asked the state, we asked the gravel pit and pits around to start taking care of their problem just like we take care of ours on our own property. Then we don't have to worry about economic loss because of somebody else's problems. That's our biggest beef here today is if they take care of their dust, then we wouldn't be having this discussion. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowley. Can I ask you a question or two?
Yes.
Thanks. How long, you may have touched on this, how long have you been a fruit grower in that area?
I am a third generation. Our farm started here in the 60s, and we've been here for a long time and doing this and enjoying it. And we love to do it. We don't want to leave. But, when you start adding in more and more economic challenges like this, it gets quicker and quicker to see the development side of things coming at you.
Can you share, thank you. Can you share how long, I know that this operation, the permit was awarded in 1999 and has been operating for, some time since then. Can you share what your historical impact has been from this dust? Has it been a problem for 5, 10, 15 years in your recollection?
So this pit hasn't been operating at the magnitude that it has in the last 5 or so years. Up until then, it was just a few trucks here and there. Now it's a major pit going on, and they're expanding very rapidly. And so if it's a small little pit, the dust doesn't seem to do nearly and cause nearly the damage. But when you're creating a monster pit and there's dust constantly, and every morning between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock, there's a dust plume over the whole city of Genola and Santaquin, you got a problem. It covers the whole area every morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rowley. I appreciate your comments. We'll go on next to, let's see here. I guess Douglas is on. I don't know if he's in relation to Curtis, but Mr. Douglas Rowley, if you want to make some comments, you can.
Yes, thank you. I am a brother to Curtis, co-owner of Cherry Hill Farms, but I also manage Mountain Land Apples, which is a packing shed which is straight east of where this pit is, about approximately a mile. I represent the growers of Mountain Land Apples. There's 7 growers of Mountain Land, and we pack for 2 others. We pack approximately 18,000 bins of apples or peaches a year. What I see as I travel out into the orchards and scouting and looking as we prepare to harvest and things that I do as the manager of Mountain Land, I see dust on peaches. I see dust on leaves. I see apples that are covered in dirt. I see different things such as this, that when I get the fruit, I have to somehow figure out how to get that dust off, so it's a presentable piece of fruit for the consumer. So we wash we rinse, we scrub, we do all the things we possibly can do to make it happen. But as you know, in an apple, there's a calyx end and there's a stem end that those brushes don't get into. And we see the dirt. We see the dirt from that as it gets washed, it turns a darker color, and then it dries, it's a lighter color. It's a difficult time for us to be able to clean this fruit up. I see tart cherries that I know this pit does not do asphalt. I don't know if it's even in the cards to do asphalt, but I see tart cherries that have a I don't know what you call it, just a little bit of oil on them because of the smoke from the asphalt machine. How do we take care of this stuff so it does not interfere with other people's operations? I know it was stated earlier that we're doing everything that the regulations show, but I don't know if I've ever seen any water being sprayed out there on their dirt or on their piles to take care of the dust. I see their trucks driving down the road, and I know they're not Maverick Pit trucks, but I see gravel trucks driving up the road, and the dust is just blowing right out of the top of the truck. All of this creates issues for the growers that I work with. And they all, I mean, we represent about, I don't know, 1,500 acres of the growers that bring fruit to us. Some of them are Cherry Hill Farms. Some of them are part of the McMullen Orchards. But there's several others that aren't on the call today that has asked us to represent them. And, you know, Curtis made some numbers. William made some numbers, but if you add it together and it costs you $100 an acre to spray, all of a sudden I have 100 acres to spray once. What is that? You know, how much is that? You got 2,000 acres at $100 an acre. How much money is that? Those are the things that impact these growers. That's what's impacting us as Mountain Lion Apples, trying to clean this up and take care of the fruit. So I just ask, such as Curtis said, take care of your problem and quit giving it to someone else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowley. I would like to, as I'm looking at the online contributors, I don't see anyone else. There are a list of some of the links for our audiovisual. Is there anyone else online who hasn't provided comment yet? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who has come into the room or anyone else in the room who'd like to provide comment at this time? Hey, come on up to the podium if you don't mind.
Yeah, you right over there?
Good morning.
Good morning. Are the green lights on? They are? Okay. State your name if you don't mind, and then go ahead.
I'm Cheryl Fowers, and our farm is, we have 7 different pieces of ground. We're in the same circular that everybody has been talking about. They are our neighbors, and we're all in the orchard business. We run almost 400 acres of orchard. I submitted a book to Dana, and I hope that there was studying done by this, because it was evidence. It wasn't hearsay, it was actual evidence. So if you'll go to, by the way, I helped write up the county ordinances in 99 through 2002 on the gravel pit committee, and we worked with all the different agencies with this. And I've seen quite a change since that ordinance was written. It's been changed. Okay, so it talks about, in Chapter 3 in their own handbook, it talks about mineral extraction operations would be adversely affect agricultural activities, should be removed from agricultural lands from production, should not be permitted when feasible, when there's feasible alternatives. And so what I'm watching is, here are dreams. We put in not 1 year, not 2 years, but 15 years to even get a full tree growth. I gave an article that has over 40 doctors that did studies on this for 20 to 30 years on the effects of dust and what it has on it. One of the things that's really scary about this lime dust is it causes a crust formation, especially when there's humidity in the air, which causes a problem on the leaves. When that happens, the leaves actually, the dust that's on there turns into cement dust. Thane Teggy up in Brigham City was talking to me the other day that this is why his trees never grow, and the leaves, he has a problem with this, that the leaves get this crust formation from all the gravel pits up there, and then the leaves fall off before the time that they should have. One of the other effects that we have is the leaf temperature. When this happens and we get dust on our leaf temperature, it gets hot, and then this produces fruit when it's not quite ready to be ripe, and it causes us problems. And then the mite damage is unbelievable, and also it can cause discoloring on our fruit, all different kinds of things. Another article that I sent in to you was what it does when we breathe that 2.5 particulate matter, or PM10s. And a study is published in the Journal of American Medical Association. It leads to high plaque deposits in arteries, causing vascular inflammation and arteriosis, a hardening of the arteries that reduces elasticity, which can lead to heart attacks and cardiovascular problems. I don't know how many minutes I have. We came in late. Do you know how much longer I have?
Ms. Fowers, I'm going to let you go on. I'll give you at least another, let's say, 7 to 8 minutes. But if you feel verbose and your content is solid, I'll let you go on. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, with this, it was interesting with the PM10s changing the validity of that leaf surface. It also acts like cement, but what happens to that is our pH level goes from 7 to 12, which is actually acid. And so that causes a lot of damage on our fruit trees. With that leaf temperature changing the surface, it can interfere with the actual diffusion of light on these leaves, and then our trees are dying, and we also end up with high frost intake. Because of them being covered, you've got this tree that's covered in dust, and there's no way that it can reach the sunlight, and so we have a problem there. I also gave you an article of Jeff Mitchell's lawsuit that he had back in '99. It was a surmountable amount, and it was when they were putting in the shopping mall over in American Fork, and it was proof that there was decrease of fruit size, coloring, vegetation growth on the young trees, damage to flower buds, and it was highly costly mitigation. With these dust mites that we have, I also gave you University of Utah information about these spider mites and the dust mites. They're unable to, we have good mites and we have bad mites. And there's nothing, I check the bugs out to our lake farm and all over. And it's exciting when you can hold a leaf in your hand and you can actually see Mother Nature taking care of these mites. And you have to have a microscope to be able to see them. And then all of a sudden you see something that looks like a caterpillar eating these little teeny polka dots that you can't see with the naked eye. But yet Mother Nature is taking care of this defect that we get. With mites, we get immature fruit, we get all kinds of things that happen to us. Tree vigor, the size of fruit. It causes us all kinds of problems. I know Thad Rowley, a dear neighbor of ours, passed away, a young man. He called me up last year and he says, "Oh, Cheryl, I'm so sorry. They didn't get the mite sprayed, and they're going to be in your orchard." And when I came home from the hospital, I looked, and there was the mites in my orchard. And he says, we've tried, but we just can't keep it under control. And we are next door to him, and so he apologized for having the mites. And he's right next door to this Maverick pit. Yesterday, I wish I had been able to take a picture. As I went past William McMullen's house, you couldn't see his house from the plume of dust that was blowing over his orchard. Now, how are we ever supposed to be able to compete with that, especially if you're going to open this pit wider and be able to take care of the necessary parts? In Utah County, it talks about, okay, one of the ordinances was dust generated in extraction and processing earth products shall be kept under control by the operator by keeping the extraction area, main roads in the pit, loaded trucks watered down, and placing berms of landscape screening for protection from prevailing winds and other suitable measures. Any unpaved access road to the pit from the paved road system shall be maintained by the pit operator and dust controlled by watering down the access road and surface by placing inhibiting material on the ground. You very rarely ever see any water coming on the road coming out of the Maverick pit ever. And I could take a picture every day. You don't see that dust being mitigated. I've went to the county to ask, could you do policing on this? Here, fill out a form, and that's about as far as it goes. I also gave you some pictures. I left it in my folder over there. If any of you would like to see the pictures, if you get up early in the morning and you go out towards the slant towards Eureka, and you look back towards Genola, you see this dust just covering the town of Genola. And you see it laying in these different yards. And it's amazing. As you go up on top of the slant of Eureka, what you're noticing is Kegley Quarry and my property and around the Rolly Hill, this wind circulates. And so we get it from both pits, and it just keeps going around and around in circle. And that's evidence. You can see that. That's not made up. On the Division of Air Quality with these different chemicals, to be able to have an asphalt plant put in, it's very dangerous. I would really ask the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining to reconsider and to start policing what we already have a problem, and to see what we can do to mitigate it, because we're in trouble. And we have put down roots there. This is our livelihood. And just like in their chapter 3, living with sand and gravel operations, if it is to be removed, agricultural lands from production should not be permitted when feasible alternatives exist. We would like to see more regulations put on them, and we know that it's a chemical that's needed, a product that's needed, but we've got to do the very best we can and maintain it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fowers.
And
I
if
appreciate
anybody would like to see the pictures, I have them over here.
Thank you. And also, we did review the material you sent in, so that's all. I think many of the pictures you've already provided.
I did.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more public comments at this time? Come on up. Step up to the mic and so everybody can hear you, and then we'll let you go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm Lynn Fowers. We have Fowers Fruit Ranch in Genola, started in 1968. We had one piece of ground that we farmed prior to that, and probably in 61 we bought that little piece, 20 acres up by the highway. But from there we've grown tremendously, and this year we had a real bad trouble, and last year also. But this year was worse with mite damage. We sprayed them twice. We have over 100 acres in a block right by the pit, and we sprayed that twice, so that's $40,000. And we usually have to spray it just a little spots here and there when they pop up. So there's $40,000 extra dollars that we had to spend to produce a crop. And now we get the crop that we're light on color because we can't get the sun into the leaves and the fruit. And then now we got lighter fruit, which is going to sell for less money. We have dirt and dust in the stem ends, and it's just caked in there from the rain getting on it and washing it down in. And we have to try. How do you clean that out? Doug says, how do you clean it out? There's no way you can clean it out. We have brushes and it cleans off the surface, but down in them little stem ends, when you go to the store, look, and it's a real bad problem that we face. Color on the fruit is one of the main problems, and if you get mites in the tart cherries in the spring, it makes this red color. It goes brownish tan, and the skin's leathery, so they can't use it in pastries. It either goes to juice or something worthless almost. I mean, you can't. Some years you can't give it away, so that's one of the problems that we have in the tart cherries. In the sweet cherries, they lose leaves, and the fruit just gets little and brownish, and it's impossible to sell it. So we have to spray to keep the mites under control, and we would appreciate it when back in '99 when Valley Asphalt wanted to put this pit in and start this original pit that Maverick has. They came towards the town, and we all went over to the county and met, and they promised that they would keep the dust to the minimum. They water the roads, water the piles so the dust don't blow off. They did a pretty good job. But now we don't have to water the trucks down. They build a stand-up pipe where you get out on the road, and the guys would stop and water them down, and then it wouldn't blow off the truck. But it blows off now. We don't have that. They can cover them with they put fishnet or screen over the top of the trucks to keep the bigger stuff, but the spine stuff blows off. Like Cheryl said yesterday, we went to a meeting, and it was just a wind blowing off of the pit. They don't operate, I don't believe, on a Sunday, and it was just a cloud. It's just a powder. It's all stirred up out there. We need some help. If you guys can give us some help to litigate some of this, they could water the roads, they could keep it cleaned up, they could asphalt some of the roads in the pit, which would help. Put water on the crushers. There's things that can be done that aren't being done, and that's where we're at. We're all in this orchard business together, and it doesn't look any different from my orchard to somebody else's, what the damage is, but that's what we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fowers. Is there any other comment, either online or in the room, that we'd like to provide at this time? All right, seeing none, it's 9:51. I am going to take a 15-minute break to discuss with council and a few other things moving forward. When I come back, I'd like for the division to speak specifically to the division's responsibility regarding dust mitigation. And then, of course, I'd like the operator to provide any sort of last-minute comments. So starting right now, Matt, if you can do what you're going to do, and we're going to take a 15-minute break. Thank you. appreciate everyone's allowance of this discussion. At this time, I'd invite the division to come up and provide additional comments.
Hey, Matt, I was late and I don't know if I can speak for a half a minute.
Oh, you know what? Certainly. We have Mr. Rowley. Hold on, division. Public comment come in from Todd Rowley. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we own the property just to the east of the new mine, the proposal. And the questions that we have, and I'm sure everybody's gone over this, is dust. We're concerned about the dust with our crops that are nearby. The other issue that we're interested in is diminished value of property. And I don't know if there's been a discussion on that, but those are the two topics that we are interested in knowing how they're going to mitigate the dust and make sure that dust isn't harming our orchards and crops. So.
Thank you, Mr. Rowley. I appreciate it. Actually, both of those topics have been covered, but I'm not diminishing your comments. I appreciate it. Just wanted to let you know that. One last call. Anyone online or in the room who'd like to provide comments at this time before I invite the division up? Okay, thank you. At this time, I invite the division to come up, and I specifically invite you to talk about the division's responsibilities or lack of responsibilities regarding dust mitigation. Thank you. Introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Dana Dean, Deputy Director for Mining. Yes, the division is required to make sure that there is an air quality permit in place. We do not enforce the air quality permit. That is the job of the Division of Air Quality, part of the Department of Environmental Quality. We very much empathize with everyone who has spoken here today. We understand their issues. They're very serious issues. We do, when we go on site, we look around and see, is this site being maintained well? Are they following general good practices? If it looks dusty, we look around and say, do they have a water truck out? Are they using water on their belts and things like that? And we'll ask about that, but we do not have the power to enforce those things. That is exclusively under the jurisdiction of the department or the Division of Air Quality. So we cannot write violations on that. In fact, I sent my inspectors to smoke school, is what they call it, under DAQ, to get them authorized to understand how, when an air quality violation is happening. But that was unhelpful. I stopped sending and spending the money because we can't write violations. And it was unhelpful to know when those violations were happening because we could not do anything when we found out. So we are not authorized to do anything that's not in our own statutes. And although we greatly empathize and understand the issues, we do not have the authority to do anything about air quality or dust.
Thank you, Ms. Dean. I appreciate it.
Could I have Matt Munson come up and talk about the phasing issue?
Please, go ahead.
Thank you.
Can you turn on the camera so we can see who's talking?
That's a great idea. Can our IT?
Yes, we sure can. That
Thank
should
you.
be on now.
Much better, much better.
Thank you.
Yes, Matt Munson, Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining. So back to Ms. Stevens' comment regarding the phased approach. A phased approach is allowed by the division. It just has to be bonded for, and each phase, it's allowed to change and morph as needed according to the operation. However, say Maverick Rock, future phases implements or attempts to implement through an amendment process major enough changes, it could call back into a revision status and necessitate public comment again, which no operation wants to do. They don't want to go through the public comment, so it's their best interest to stick to their plan, but they do not have to. They would need to do any amendments, propose it to the division for review, and bond accordingly. But just because they say one amount of acreage, that's what we're approving and bonding for, and they have to stick to that for the time being. But if they turn in an application to amend that, they're more than welcome to, and we'll restart the review process as needed. That's all I have for the phased approach.
Mr. Munson, can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit more detail to what an amendment, what sort of items would trigger that? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So in the division, we do either an amendment or a revision. An amendment is more simple than a revision. That's the most basic way to say it. An example of an amendment could be anywhere from if the operator gets a new telephone number and they need to update that number in the NOI, that's an amendment. If they want to expand their operation, say by 10 acres, that's an amendment. In this case, if they want to expand by hundreds of acres, that's a revision. That requires a little bit more thorough review, and it requires that public comment process as well. But amendments do not require public comment, and it's up to the division to determine what's an amendment, what's a revision.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I invite Maverick Rock to come up and provide any responses you feel appropriate.
Yes, thank you, Director Thomas. We did want to just address the comments regarding air quality and dust control. And I think as Dana Dean indicated, the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining really does not have jurisdiction over the dust control plan, but we have attached the fugitive dust control plan, and that's found at Appendix J of the Notice of Intent. In addition, the Division of Air Quality administers an approval order, and that approval order is attached at Appendix I if you wanted to review that. So, in fact, not only, the Notice of Intent addresses, air quality by reference to the dust control plan and to the air quality approval order, but in addition, the Marty White and the Maverick Rock folks are really highly sensitive to the impacts on the orchards because Mr. White he's the manager of Ekins Orchards LLC, which is just adjacent to the gravel pit. And so they've spent a lot of money on dust control. They're very aware of the dust issue. And under their dust control plan, they've in fact have 3 water trucks. They're consistently watering the area and controlling dust. And that's part of their dust control plan. And then just in addition, there's also an asphalt road that goes from the highway up to the crusher, so the asphalt paved road doesn't generate dust. So it's controlled by both the asphalt road and then also the fact that there's a fugitive dust control plan, three water trucks consistently generating water to control the dust there. In addition, the operator has water rights. The water rights have been changed over for industrial and dust suppression purposes, and so they have the water rights necessary to facilitate the dust control plan. And then in terms of groundwater, and I think that issue was raised before, once again, the surface and groundwater protection is handled by the Department of Environmental Quality. The UPDES, Utah Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit is found at Appendix 1, and the Stormwater Prevention Pollution Plan is attached at Appendix J. So if there's any concerns about those water quality issues, you can take a look at those in the NOI, but once again, it's the Department of Environmental Quality, not the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining that regulates those issues. Finally, there were several issues regarding zoning that were raised, and once again, the division doesn't regulate local land use issues. That's either up to the cities or Utah County. So the division, though, although it does not have jurisdiction, an approved notice of intent doesn't relieve the operator from complying with other regulations and statutes, and that's per 4817. So in sum, as discussed by the division and Amber Withers, the NOI addresses all the requirements for approval that are set out in 4813 and the division rules at R647-4. The permit boundaries and operations are essentially the same as were approved by the division in 1999, so this isn't really an expansion. And the revisions are primarily directed to reformatting the permit. The division has appropriately issued the tentative approval, and we'd request you as Director Thomas, to affirm the division's tentative approval of the revised large mine permit for the Ekins mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dragoo. This has been an informative public comment session. I appreciate it. I need to clarify a few things that I think everyone probably knows. First, it is a public comment session. This is not a hearing. It would be entirely inappropriate for me to offer any opinion or outcome based at the end of this public comment session. This was maybe not simple, but the primary directive is to allow public comments from all parties to be voiced and brought together. But again, it would not be appropriate. In fact, I would probably be breaking some rules if I offered any opinion at this time as the director or the moderator. So in that case, I'm not going to offer any. However, I do want to sincerely thank everyone for their comments today and the concise and direct information that we all provided. Thank you very much. This is concluded.